I spent the last 3 years testing every single trading strategy I could get my hands on. Everything from smart money concepts to ICT, supply and demand, order blocks, fair value gaps, trend lines, indicators, you name it. And most of it straight up cooked me. But there was one strategy that worked insanely well, and it's the exact same strategy that got me and can also get you to $10,000 a month trading one trade a day. So if you've been trading for a while and you just cannot seem to pull any consistent profit, or you're trying to get into this game without burning through your money while skipping every bit of trial and error, it's your lucky day. Because in this video, I'm gonna be showing you every single strategy that cost me so you know exactly what to avoid. The one strategy that actually worked and got me to 10K a month, and the 3 simple steps I wrapped around it so you can run this whole thing yourself starting today. Now, 3 years ago, I was a college freshman working a grocery store job for $7 an hour, and I had just done the stupidest thing of my entire life. I pulled $5,000 out of student loans, which was supposed to be for housing and food, and I deposited $2,500 of it into a Webull account. And my plan was absolute genius. I was going to flip $2,500 into a 6-figure trading account before the semester was over and pay the loan back in full before anyone even noticed it was gone. And the greatest part was that I didn't have a strategy or a mentor, and all I had was YouTube videos of some guy in a rented Lambo flexing me his weekly P&L. So on my very first trade ever, straight up, I loaded up on SPY calls, which, if you didn't know, is the most volatile instrument a beginner can even touch. And I watched my entire account get cut in half inside of 1 or 2 minutes. My hand was shaking so hard on the sell button that I could barely even click the thing. That was the very first lesson the market ever taught me, and it cost me about half my account in under 2 minutes to learn it. So after options cooked me, I did what every broke college kid does. I went straight back to YouTube and started hunting for the real strategy. And that is when I fell straight into the second trap, the prop firm rabbit hole. Now, the pitch sounds incredible to a desperate beginner's ears because you pay a small fee, you pass an evaluation, and suddenly a firm is handing you your own capital to trade with. You keep most of the profits, you carry none of the downside yourself, and the upside of the whole thing is completely uncapped. So I signed up for every prop firm challenge I could get my name on, FTMO, Top Step, you name it. And I brought with me every single strategy the internet was pushing that quarter. I started with smart money concepts because every influencer on Instagram was preaching liquidity grabs, order blocks like it was gospel. From there, I moved on to supply and demand zones, ICT, fair value gaps, trend line breaks. Then I ran every single indicator. TradingView will even let you load up on the chart. If somebody with a rented Lambo in your pinned comment was teaching it on YouTube, I swear I ran that too. And I wasn't lazy about any of it. I was carrying a full course load at school, working grocery store shifts in between, and backtesting 10 to 12 hours a day on top of that. I was hitting Asia session at 7 p.m., London at 1 a.m., New York at 7 a.m. with 3 alarms on my phone to catch every single open. And every single strategy I ran had the exact same arc. Learn it, pass the phase 1 evaluation, get into phase 2, blow the account on a single emotional trade, buy another challenge, and run the whole cycle from scratch. Over 3 years straight, I blew through $50,000 of real capital, one failed challenge at a time. And I had nothing to show for any of it except a pattern that I could not break. But somewhere in the middle of that 3rd year, sitting in front of 3 years of my own backtest late one night, something finally clicked. Something I don't think I would have seen without that exact amount of pain sitting in front of me first. Every single strategy that I had tried was actually working. The setups were catching moves, the entries were landing, the charts were doing exactly what the video said they would do, and yet I was still blowing every single account I touched. And that is the exact moment that it finally clicked for me. It wasn't that my strategy was the problem, but rather everything wrapped around it. So the sizing, the stop placement, the take profit, how many trades I was taking in a day, what I did the second the trade went live, even the time of day that I sat down to trade, all of it was a complete casino. And no matter how clean the entry was, everything underneath it was blowing the account up every single time. Strategy is 20%, systems are 80%. And once I understood that, I stopped chasing new strategies. I gave up on hunting for the holy grail entry. I went back into those 3 years of backtests, looking for the most repeatable, boring, and unsexy pattern on the chart. A pattern that showed up every single trading day, regardless of news, volatility, or what the market was supposed to be doing that morning. And that is when I finally found it. Across 3 years of historical data, price was reacting at the exact same 5 levels on the chart, day after day. It was the Asia and London session highs and lows plus the New York Open. Those levels were getting tagged, swept, or respected on almost every single session I looked at, because those were the levels big institutional money was actually pricing off of in the first place. And that was the beginning of what I now call the session liquidity model. The session liquidity model on its own is the strategy, but it is only 20% of the equation. What actually makes it print is the 80% that's stacked on top of it, which is the stupidly simple 3-step system I built to wrap around the entire strategy so my brain could never get in the way of the setup again. And the third step is the part that most traders skip entirely, even though it's the single reason I haven't blown another funded account since the day I locked it in. But before we even get there, let's start with step 1, which is the entry. And genuinely, it is the most boring chart on the internet. My entire chart is genuinely just those 5 session levels and a raw candle, nothing else on the screen at all. Because where the money actually lives is how price reacts to those levels, not in any indicator or trend line stacked on top of them. So all I'm waiting for on any given morning is a sweep of one of those session highs or lows. And the second price comes back into that same level and prints a 3-minute or 5-minute inversion fair value gap, that right there is my entry. But the entry is genuinely the easy part because it's a binary rule. Either price sweeps the level and prints the inversion fair value gap, or it doesn't and you take the trade and you walk away. But step 2 is where most traders take a perfectly clean entry and then spend the next hour butchering the trade so badly that they end the session red on a setup that was genuinely supposed to pay them at least $1,000. And that is the execution. Because the second your entry fills, they start dragging the stop wider to give it more room, taking partials that they never planned on, or jumping back in 3 times on the same move trying to ride it higher. Every single trade I take, on the other hand, has a preset stop and a preset take profit locked in before I ever click buy or sell. The stop sits above the candle that triggered the setup, not above the swing high like everyone else teaches. Because I backtested both side by side, and the tighter stop gave me the same exact win rate with a cleaner risk to reward ratio on every single trade. Which means for the same number of winners and losers across a full month, I'm banking $1.50 or $1 for every dollar that I risk. And over 30 trading days, that can be the difference between a break-even account and a 5-figure payout at the end of the month. The take profit lands at the next session liquidity level because those are exactly the levels where the next wave of stop hunts and liquidity runs are about to happen anyway. Which means price is already magnetized to them on the way up or down, and I'm simply closing my position out before the market has any chance to change its mind about the move. So once the trade is live, there's genuinely nothing left for me to manage in the trade itself, because the entire system is doing the work for me. And even the traders who eventually nail steps 1 and 2 will still end up blown out inside 12 months without step 3, because that is the one almost nobody in this space actually wants to touch. And that is psychology, because the second the system takes over the trade, the only thing left to manage is you. And that is easily the hardest trade in this whole game. That is why the moment my entry fills, I close the app on my phone, lock the screen, and physically walk out of the room the chart is sitting in. And I'm not even kidding. I literally go to the gym, answer a few emails, grab breakfast, and do anything on earth except sit there staring at the chart that is already handling itself without me. Because I drilled 3 years of overtrading out of my system the hard way, and I know exactly what happens to me if I sit there watching the candle. And that is exactly the trap the 1 trade a day keeps the 9 to 5 away rule was built to shut down. And real quick, if you want to see exactly what it looks like when this setup runs in your own account, or you want actual step-by-step guidance on installing the whole system yourself, that is exactly what I do inside the Day Trading Accelerator, where I'm going live with you, walking through the setups, behind the scenes trade, and every edge case as it plays out on the market in real time. Because not long after I locked that exact setup in myself, I started hitting consistent 5-figure months back to back. And my biggest month to date, just to put the scale of it in context, was $30,000 in profit. But what actually matters more than my own numbers is how you can do these exact same numbers. How you run this exact system for yourself as early as today. Well, first, pick one session and lock into it for the next 30 days straight with no switching around in between. If you work a 9 to 5, you're trading the 7 a.m. New York Open before you clock in, and you're done for the day by 9:30. If you work nights or you're already a natural night owl, you're trading the Asia Open at 7 p.m. and you're in bed by 8:30. So pick the one that fits your life, lock it in, and hit it every single morning for 30 days straight before you ever think about adding a second one. Second is preset every single decision about the trade before the trade is ever live, which means you preset the entry, the stop loss, the take profits, and exit plan. All of them are written down before you ever click buy. Because the second that position is live and your P&L starts swinging, your brain stops working like a trader's brain, and that is genuinely not a character flaw on your part. It's just biology. So every decision that you're going to make on the trade gets made while the chart is still calm and the account is still flat, not in the middle of a live move. And that is a perfect tie into the third and last step, because the move here is embarrassingly simple, yet it is genuinely the exact reason most of them stay broke for years. You have to remove the option to babysit the trade before the option even exists, which means pre-booking the hour right after your entry with something that physically gets you out of the room the chart is in. Because the longer you sit there watching candles print, the louder the loop starts running in your head, and you start thinking, am I up right now or am I down right now? And that loop is the quick dopamine hit that your brain is actually chasing. How you happen to feel in any single moment of a live trade has genuinely zero relationship to the money that trade ends up paying you out in the end. The trade pays exactly what the trade was always going to pay, whether you spent the hour panicking at the chart or you were already at the gym with your phone in the locker. And that is the simplest roadmap you ever find on the internet. But it's like that for a reason, because what's simple is repeatable. And once you get your first profitable trade, that just snowballs into 10K month after 10K months. That is the exact system I have been running myself now for 3 years. But there's one more thing I need to tell you about, because just executing the right setup on the chart has hundreds of micro decisions sitting inside of it, like rating whether today's session sweep is a clean hunt or a fake out, knowing whether the inversion fair value gap that prints is actually sharp enough to trust, and catching when the news flow is about to chop your setup up before the move ever develops. And if you get even one of those calls wrong on a given morning, you turn your potential 10 grand month into another negative month. So to ensure that none of my students make stupid mistakes like that, that's exactly what I'm teaching them inside the Day Trading Accelerator, where I'm walking them through exactly how to read a session sweep the second it prints on the chart, size your positions correctly so a single loss does not blow your prop firm drawdown, and actually run the one trade a day routine without over trading your way out of your funded account again. So if you want to get access to the exact same thing, so you start pulling $10,000 a month off the session liquidity model yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can apply to join the Day Trading Accelerator, and I'll see you in the next video.